Welcome back. Welcome back. It's BoxN1, the podcast. I'm your host, Ralph, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Elise Clyburn. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's early for me today, but I'm ready. I'm
Man,
excited.
it's just another day. Excitement
How
is
you
good.
doing?
I'm alive, so
How
doing
you doing,
great.
bro?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm alive. I'm ready to kick this thing off. As we enter
Oh
the
yeah.
Atlantic Division. Full disclaimer, I grew up in both New York and New England, so I don't like none of their teams. but but NASA, it's just gonna. This is what we getting into. We're gonna get into the Atlantic Division today. Um, I mean, they've been in the
A
news
lot of drama. A
for
lot of drama.
months. Yeah, like this is the
Yes.
drama. This is the drama division of the East. Maybe not top to bottom, but it's definitely top heavy. If you listen to the Southwest, if you listen to the Southeast Division and you listen to our Central Division previews previously before this, then you know that we've already said there's anywhere between 6 to 7 teams out of just those two divisions alone. So that only leaves a couple more teams coming out of this division. So with this division being as it is, I am ready to lock in. How do you feel? Are you ready to go with this?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm ready to lock in. I
I know
gotta have a disclaimer. This is my third division in the NBA. Like I like watching these teams, so I'm excited. Let's get it.
I'm excited for the organizations. I'm just, let's go. We're gonna start out with the Toronto Raptors. Last year they played in Tampa. Ironically, that's where I happen to be living right now. They played in Tampa last year. They didn't really have any home cooking. Outside of not having any home cooking, they lose Kyle Lowry. So
pretty major loss. I mean, he was one of the longest tenured players that was with the same team, if that makes sense. So I mean, it wasn't shocking that there was a parting with him for both parties.
It was inevitable.
But
they just couldn't trade him last year during the trade deadline. They didn't see anything that they liked.
I'll be honest, I feel like that's one of the trades that happened during the offseason where I was like, I think both teams got that. Like both teams, that was a good trade because both teams got things that they both needed,
So before we really dive in, do you feel like it's Siakam's team?
No, not at all. I think it's OG's team. I really think it's OG's team.
You think it should be, or you think it is?
I think it should be, and I think it will be near mid-season. Siakam, watching some of the preseason games, he hasn't evolved. Where OG, on the other hand, we'll get to it. I mean, during the preseason, his game is looking way more fluid. Where Siakam still looks kind of robotic to me, personally. OG's looking very fluid, like very natural. He's becoming a little bit more shiftier with the ball. Like due to his size, being able to, now making separation moves or now being able to really go downhill in traffic. He's still young. I mean, OG saying at 6'7", 232 pounds, like he's one of, I mean, most NBA players are hovering around the 205 to 215 range, 220 at the heaviest. 232, I mean, dude's solid. His body's pretty good. I like him.
He's one of those guys you and I spoke about, in 2020.
We did.
His shooting and the timing that he was getting. Whereas if you elevate his time, he could potentially be on that cusp of being an all-star. My thing is, I don't think Toronto knows what direction they're ready to heading at this point, because you draft Scotty Barnes, which is not bad. But my question is, you have to understand what made Scotty Barnes so special. The kid has been playing point guard pretty much his whole life.
He had the ball in his hand.
He's a creator for
others.
He
had the ball in his hand.
In Florida State. Now it's like, well, you look at now, Van Fleet, he's a ball in his hand kind of guy now. You still got Dragic, and then you're playing him at the forward position. So are you playing him at the 3 or are you playing him at the 4? You play him at the 3, he eats in the OG. You play him at the 4, he eats in the Pascal. So like it's kind of tough. And then you trade for Precious, which I love the pickup. I love the pickup of Precious. I always thought this year was going to be his year. Even if he was in Miami, I thought it was going to be his come up.
You said that last season. You said the last season about Precious. That is a weird thing that they did pick up Scotty Barnes. I think Scotty Barnes was one of those, he's the best option on the board for their team and what they needed. But you know what? I think the pickup of Scotty Barnes is just starting the clock on Siakam, in my opinion.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. And then we didn't. I think it's putting the clock on Nick Nurse.
Yeah, I mean, you had success when you had arguably the second or the best player in the league on your team in Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he was there for one season. Last year, you just lose Kawhi Leonard, and look what happens. Things kind of went away. And yeah, it was the COVID year, but there was a lot of issues going on, even during the bubble.
Yeah.
It was a little hairy at times. But this is going to be Nick Nurse's chance to finally coach his team. Some of those veteran players that were there are gone. The veteran players that are still there, these are guys that shouldn't be in the NBA to NBA standards, right? They had a very hard journey to the NBA, so you still have some dogs in there. I'm looking at this. I think the Gordon Dragic, even though he really didn't want to be there, I think that was a really good pickup for them. One, he's going to play hard. Two, he is just a wealth of knowledge, and from everything I've ever read about Dragic, he's a professional.
He's a stand-up guy. My thing is this, I was introduced to Dragic of him getting banged on by Derrick Rose on a chase down last break. Nah, he did. But he ate that, and he was under Steve Nash at that point, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to be the successor of Nash." Like I said, I like the Dragic pickup. The problem is for me is, as you mentioned, you think it's going to be OG's team. I think it's Gary Trent Jr.
Yeah. I'm not mad at that. Watching preseason, I like Toronto, so I watched their games between OG and Gary Trent. If you tell me one of those two guys are going to win Most Improved this year, I'd be like, yeah, I can see it.
I think it's tough because from what I've watched from OG, I've seen him. He's a 2-3 dribble guy right now.
Yeah.
And every time I've seen him go more than 4 or 5 dribbles, he turns the ball over.
It gets scary.
He turns the ball over. So for me, it's like at this stage, I expected him to be at that at least 5 dribbles. I can go to basket confidently. I'm not turning the ball over. And he hasn't improved in that area. So remember, like when we talked about, I'm like, yo, if he improves in these areas, like he's going to be unstoppable. Problem is, I don't see it happening fast enough for him to, because now it's like, yo, OG's competing with Gary Trent Jr., who they just signed, right? They gave him that contract. And then he's competing with Scotty Barnes, who they just drafted. So yeah, we talk about, Scotty Barnes is Siakam's clock. It's OG's clock too. Because you have Precious. Precious could play the 4 or the 5. They have was it Brochure? Chris Brochure. He's a good defender. He's out of Oregon. I remember watching him play in Oregon. He was super, super skinny when he was out there. He's still kind of skinny, but he's still a great defender. His offense has improved drastically over the past couple of years. So this is a guy that, if healthy, is your starting 5. So you have him, you have Precious, and then you got Scotty. So that young group, you have to decide, do you keep Van Fleet?
I think you do keep Van Fleet, just because he works extremely hard. He's not afraid to taking big shots right now, right? So if you look at the roster, and you're looking at like, okay, game time situation, game on the line, and the shot clock, who's their go-to person on this team right now? And like you said, who else on the team can take more than 4 or 5 dribbles and not turn over the ball? Right now, it's going to be Van Fleet. So I think Dragic. You might, if Dragic is able to, yeah.
So Trent, you got those Trent's three.
Pretty good.
Trent is a way better player than he was drafted at. People have to understand that sure. Him going to do kind of hurt his draft stock. Like, I'm not trying to compare him to Trey, but if you give him the keys offensively, I think he can go get it. You know, I
think he's a one heck of a player.
Yeah. You want to, you got anything else on Toronto that you want to talk about?
I had some stats, but I'm not even going to go through it. I think the stat difference between Gary Trent and OG, listen, if either of those two players can score 4 to 5 points above their average from last season, this team's they're going to be near the bottom, in my opinion, in this division. But if those two players improve 4 to 5 points, the next season is going to be really good for them.
Hot take.
Not too hot.
Chet. That's it. They sweepstaking for Chet.
Yeah. That now Chet. But then if you take it for Chet, you just drafted Scotty. What are we doing here?
That's different though. You can play them both together. That's not a problem.
I get it, man, but come on, man. These players, some of these players, like skill sets are very similar.
Yeah, but that's today's NBA, right? So imagine this.
But then again, that goes back to our conversation. There's only a couple positions on the court.
Imagine this front court next year.
Okay.
Precious, Chet, and Scotty Barnes.
The shot, the rim protection, the switching, the constant pressure on ball handlers, the constant shot contest. I'm sold. You don't have to sell me on that. I like that. You don't have to sell me on that.
And then people forget the kid from France is coming over too.
Oh, Victor, whoa.
I didn't want to mess up his name like that, but let's go to Boston.
I'm gonna learn it just like I'm learning the Kumbo. I'm gonna learn it. Give me a couple weeks. I'm gonna learn it just like
I'm just saying, Chet's not a clear number one at this moment. This is gonna be another great draft or potentially great draft. So I don't want to dig into it because that's not what we're about right now. As far as talking draft, we're talking about the Atlantic Division. Just in case you didn't know, now you know. We're gonna reposition ourselves back and we're gonna talk about Boston, talk about the Celtics. Now, this is a team who, some coach abruptly leaves end of the season. Ainge is finally out, so clap it up because I know they've been waiting for him to get out. With all the draft picks that he's had, that he accumulated over those years, and who it actually came out to be,
Thank God they got Jaylen Brown. Thank God that Philly traded up and they were able to get Tatum, because if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for that trade up for Fultz that Philly did, it would be really
at the end of
over there in Boston.
At the end of the day, Boston was going to trade. Boston would have picked Tatum first anyway. Like, people have to understand that Tatum was going to be Boston's pick. But the way it was talked about, Lonzo was going where he was going, Fultz was going where he was going. So it was like, all right, cool. Well, who wants the pick? All right, cool. Philly, you have 3. You will make that trade, and we're still going to get our guy. Like, that was Danny Ainge did good there. But if you look at all the track record for most of those guys he picked in the first round throughout those traded picks, a lot of those guys aren't in the NBA anymore. So with that being said, they definitely drafted really, really good last year. They had Pritchard surprised me. He surprised a lot of people. He came guns a-blazing, ready to go. He fit in perfectly. Due to injuries, he saw more time than most rookies last year had the opportunity early on in the season, and he answered the call. I think he's a guy that
he's a bulldog.
He doesn't need the ball in his hands, but he can have it in his hands. I think he's perfect next to Smart. And I think he's great with Tatum and Brown because he doesn't demand much, but he adds more pressure to the defense or on the defense.
He's one step. He's a couple steps above TJ McConnell. He does the same things where like I'm playing, bulldog type defense. I'm gonna play out the ball. I'm gonna play my role. But you give me that rock and I got a shot. I'm gonna let this thing fly. Mm-hmm. I mean, if the East Coast, they kind of have the East Coast bias with not watching the Pac-12 games. Mm-hmm. If they watched them in Oregon, they would know exactly what type of player they were getting. So like he landed in the perfect spot for him. I thought that was a really good pickup.
And that's my thing too, because Oregon players have been getting shafted for the past couple of years.
We've been talking about it.
And, like I said, Chris Dort, who, we just mentioned in Indiana, like he's the earliest Oregon pick in the past couple of years, but he's not the best player to come out of Oregon. So,
no.
To me, it's like, wait a minute, what's going on with Oregon? But once again, he's proven that he belongs in the league. He's proven that he was deserving of that pick. He was a steal. Because if you look at him in hindsight, you're like, yo, if you knew that you were going to get him and he was going to be productive right away, that he can put the ball in the basket. Think about the guys that was drafted before him. Malachi Flynn. We just talked about Toronto and we didn't even mention him.
Nope.
So like it's just one of those things to think about. Like, wow, that's kind of crazy to consider. And he wasn't even their lottery pick. Nesmith was. And Nesmith came on strong at the end of the year last year. He had injuries.
Don't even bring him up. I wrote an article about the Magic, about people they should look at. My man was on the list. Like I was just reading his bio. Like look, I was looking down reading his bio. I was like, near the end of the season when he came back from injury, I remember he had 16, then 23 on my Magic, where he only shot less than 16 shots. So I'm like, that's another good pickup. And they drafted a scorer. Yes. Not afraid.
And he's starting to get his. Like when I say get his, he's starting to understand. Up until halfway through this upcoming season, he's still a rookie in my eyes.
Oh yeah,
because he doesn't have those many games under his belt where he's like, oh, I can. The confidence is only going to rise with him. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, like I think Boston is going to struggle this year. I don't think, and that's nothing against Udoka. I think he's a good pickup. He's from that coaching line of my guy from the Spurs. Forgot it, Popovich. So he's from that Popovich line. So I think, and from a guard perspective, he brought in Damon Stoudemire as an assistant coach. And I think that's huge for their guards.
Very huge.
Smart can finally be the feature point guard, and play his position. So I'm anxious to see how that works. But last year they had COVID. They had a lot of COVID problems. They had a lot of injury problems. This year, JB got COVID. Yeah, of course he might be back, but it affects everybody differently. So because it affects everybody differently, now you have to think like, how is this going to affect? You can't put that burden on Tatum every night to put up 30 plus points. Like, can he? Yes, but we need, in order for Boston to win, like he has to continue being a better playmaker and getting, and like at least for the first 2.5 quarters, and then be able to be that killer at the end of the game and have that, Robert Williams. They got rid of Theis. So now Robert Williams, hey, you can't be hurt. You have to grow up really, really fast. And yes, they brought in Al Horford and Cantor back, but Cantor is a defensive liability. And Al Horford, he's not who he was 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. Like some of the guys they have, I mean, across the board, their heights they're not a super big team. Everyone's kind of around the same height.
They have nobody over 6'10". Cantor's the biggest player on their team. Everybody else is 6'9".
Yeah, Cantor is the biggest person on the team. He struggles defensively, but he's going to get his offensively. He's going to be a beast on the boards, right? Mm-hmm. You have Al Horford, who we saw his mobility has gone way down, which it should have with all the banging and the physicality he's been playing with. I mean, They have Hernan Gomez, which is a forward, but they played him at some center.
He could shoot.
They played him at some center at times.
But he
they
did.
got Robert Williams. That's gonna be their toughest spot.
Robert Williams, if healthy, Robert Williams will be in that running for Defensive Player of the Year. If healthy.
Oh, yeah.
If Boston was to be a top 3 or 4 team, they need him to be a Defensive Player of the Year.
Now, we haven't talked about the elephant on this team.
Which one?
So you have Pritchard, which we said, he came in, he's doing his thing. They have Martin Smart. This is his year to be the point guard. You have Brown.
Oh, that guy.
Who's going to be running. But they signed Dennis Schroeder. I know you have more experience watching him, at least for one season, than I do. How do you think he's going to impact this team?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think they needed him. I think he's an insurance policy. At the same time, like we talked about the point guard position, right? This is, every team has 3, 4, maybe 5 point guards. I think the Boston Celtics alone have like 6 or 7 guys that can play point. That could literally just initiate the offense. My problem with Schroeder is great at setting up Schroeder.
And where he's playing for a contract that he feels like he deserves. Yes. So he's playing for stats this season, which could be a good thing, because if I look correctly on Boston's website, statistically, they were 21st in scoring. So this could be good, because now you're bringing in a point guard who has playoff experience, looking to add that in. They didn't need him, but it'll be interesting to watch.
I mean, you said playoff experience, and he still got less experience than Pritchard. No, but so my thing is this: Schroeder's best season came in Oklahoma when he was the third guard in the offense. He was a 6th man. He was up there for 6th man of the year. He bought into that role because that role's job was to score. He was either always on the court with Chris Paul or always on the court with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which means he didn't have to be the predominant point guard. So you look at him last year, LeBron eases him into that position, and he still fails. And when I say fail because I'm not a LeBron guy, but at the end of the day, LeBron is 37, about to be 38 years old. He needed another guard that can set the table for everybody else. He didn't need somebody that could set the table for him. He just needs somebody that can ease the load and set the table for everybody else. Schroeder, even going back to his Atlanta days, the only person I've really seen him be successful setting the table up for is himself. And
he's not successful.
But once again, it's a new coach. We'll see what Udoka could do. Like I said, Damon Stoudemire is the assistant coach. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but hey, if you want to stay in this league a little bit longer, you probably want to take notes from one of the greatest players to to play for Toronto. Speaking of, I don't know how Toronto never put him on their team, on their coaching staff, like ever. Like, that's kind of wild. But anyway, let's get out of Boston.
Who we got next?
Yo, let's talk about the team that robbed the Coach of the Year award from at least 2 other coaches last year in the Knicks. Not to say that the Knicks did bad. The Knicks did good, right? But was it Coach of the Year worthy compared to the other coaches that was up there? No. But New York basketball for a little bit was back. I say for a little bit.
They finished almost 600, above, like they finished, they won 56.9% of their games.
Which again,
it's a huge turnaround from where they were the season before.
And we talked about this. It was a shortened season. The season's going back to 82 this year. 82 games. So a lot more can happen over the course of 82 games, you know, whereas a 6 or 7 game win streak, you know, last year that could take you from 8th to 3rd.
I'm going to say some stats real quick from last season. Okay. And this is why they won, right? They were 4th in scoring in the league, 7th in rebounding in the league, 5th in assists. Now that one was huge. Now, they were also 6th in opponents' points per game, which we already know Thibodeau. What's he known for? Defense. So the fact that his team was 4th offensively, they're turning the plays over so quick that their opponents can't even catch up. I mean, but when you have young guards who are just going to get better, I mean, and then I like them, but the playoffs showed the inefficiencies offensively in Thibodeau's coaching style.
I mean, and that's, you can't really blame anybody for that, right? Because he just is like, hey, Julius, run wild. And Julius worked hard.
He's playing with the roster he had during the playoffs, right?
Julius is my guy. They didn't have Kemba. So I want to speak on that too, because you got to understand, they just picked up 2 former Celtics. 2. You picked up Kemba and you picked up Evan Fournier, right? And I know, you know how I feel about Evan Fournier.
You know how I feel about Evan Fournier.
Yes. My problem with Evan Fournier is, and it's probably going to help him being in New York because he can be the best version of him. He doesn't have to worry about being a 2nd or 3rd option, because he's not. But all he has to do is shoot the ball. And that's what Evan loves to do, is shoot the ball.
And honestly, coming off of the Olympics, where Evan Fournier on the French national team, I mean, he plays like a freaking stud McMuffin. Coming off of that, his confidence is going to be through the roof, because after the FIBA World Championships, he came back to Orlando and he was playing well. So this could be really good for New York, right? Because one, he's playing with that confidence. He's still in shape. He didn't go to France, and do nothing. So that's good. But I actually like the pickup of Evan Fournier for a player like RJ Barrett. Because Evan Fournier, regardless of how I feel about Evan Fournier as a former Magic player, I'll say this: the dude is actually a solid NBA player. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes when he is that off the ball player. Now, when he's the
focal point,
there's some issues. But when he is the 3rd, 4th option in the offense, Evan is solid as hell. He is a starting player in this league, right? Like, if you look statistically, he's top 30 in his position in the league.
I think he could be a star role player. Like, I feel like as a role player, and like 6 man coming off the bench, he could be a star. You can get maybe 13 to 15 points from him. He's replacing RJ. He's replacing Bullock. So this is a guy that we know can initiate offense. Yeah, like, we know this is a guy that can initiate offense. The difference is Bullock was a better defender. So that's where you're giving up. But once again, so then again, the Knicks get Kemba Walker, brings him back home. My problem with Kemba in Boston is going to be my problem with Kemba in New York. When the playoffs come, you're not going to be able to do the boop, 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 hoop, step back, because guess what? Every team is prepared for it. Like, are you running pick and rolls with Randall? Are you willing to sacrifice and be the 3rd or 4th option in New York, in the Knicks? Like, fam, this needs to be Randall and Barrett's team. That's it. This team can only go as far as they go. I wasn't overly gassed over the quickly pickup, but here's where I also want to point out for the Knicks last year, where they hurt most, is they only really had 2 bigs in Taj Gibson and Nerlens Noel last year. Mitchell Robinson got hurt, arguably in what was starting to become his best season as a pro.
Yeah, he was showing really well. I'm looking at their depth chart, and I'm like, their depth chart, it's not bad.
They have bodies. Like, they have a good roster. The problem,
I'm gonna be honest with you. Go ahead. What's the problem?
They have a good roster. The problem is it's injuries. is injuries. And then because thing is, without injuries, you have minutes issues. With injuries, you don't have minutes issues because you only play what's available and who's available.
Now, why are there injury issues? It goes back to Thibodeau and his coaching style and the minutes he puts on players. And now it goes back to the season's getting longer. You guys are actually gonna make a run in the playoffs because you guys are a competent team now. So you're gonna have a shot to either make it to be a playing team or actually be in the playoffs, right?
Listen.
So now when we talk about a longer season, now when we talk about you're making playoff runs, injuries will stack up. And then you're gonna have to throw in, I'm not a big Obi fan. He's not skilled. He's just an athlete. Now you throw him in.
But if he commits to defense, if Obi commits to defense, and that's where you got to understand. Like, I love the pickup of Jericho Sims. You know that because I was talking about Jericho Sims before the draft. Mm-hmm. You know, he goes to the Knicks, and I'm like, look, he's every big man that he's played with in college is in the league. From his freshman year to his senior year, every big that played at Texas that's in the league right now, for the most part, played with him.
We said Texas. We're bringing up Texas again.
You know, but that's where it's like, listen, Jericho Sims is an athlete. He's big. He's strong. He knows how to play his role. I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar, but what I'm saying is if you have a guy like Mitchell Robinson that gets hurt again, you have a bigger athletic guy in the stable. You still got Nerlens Noel.
Man, his bounce is crazy. His bounce is ridiculous. He might be the bounciest player in the NBA.
But he goes after it. Like, he doesn't mind doing the dirty work. So it's like, when you understand that, it's like, so now you team that up with Obi, right? And then you can give me any three offensive guys. Give me Barrett, right? Give me Barrett with those two. Give me Kemba. Right, give me Kemba, give me Barrett, and put Randall away for a little bit, and let's get Fournier.
Listen, I'm looking at the depth chart again. They have a guy that was on the Magic last year that at times in multiple games scored more than 20 points, and he's in their third string. This team, I would say this, within a short amount of time, New York's done a really good job of forming a team that is a Thibodeau team. Mm-hmm. In such a quick amount of time. I think this is going to be another team in the East that will have another good season and be a playoff team, whether it be a play-in. Like, if you're facing a playing game against the Knicks, you should be worried.
I mean, so let's keep it a buck. This division last year was a 4 playoff team. It was a 4 playoff division.
Could be.
We already spoke about one division. I said has the potential to be a 4 playoff division, right?
This one's gonna be a 3 for sure.
I'm heavy on 2, and the only reason why I'm heavy on the 2, definitely 2. The 3 and the 4, there's so much despair. Like, there's no because when you look at the other divisions,
2,
you look at. So we said earlier, like, hey, there's about 7 teams from the other 2 divisions collectively. You put 4, and it's like one of those divisions we said might be able to get a 3rd. Might. So, we got honestly, like, you look at a Boston, I don't see Boston winning 50 games. I don't see the Knicks winning 50 games this year. So, they have to play each other. They're going to have to play each other. It's back to the 82 games. So staying in New York, let's transfer over to let's go to the Nets, man. Let's go to Brooklyn. BK.
Where is that?
Yeah, I used to live there. So shout out to Brooklyn. Shout outs to Brooklyn.
I think I'll say this. I'm going to say this to start out. I think when the next 2 teams we were talking about, Brooklyn and Sixers after this, I think a lot of people who made bets early on this season are going to wish they took their money back.
Most definitely.
This is looking real spooky out here up there.
It is, but I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm going to say this out right now. Like, they're a good team. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and then we're gonna go into it. As of right now, Kyrie's not playing. So everything that we talk about when it comes to the Nets is without Kyrie being there. If Kyrie does happen to end up playing, it's an added bonus, but it's really not going to make much of a difference to what was going to be said regardless. With that being said, the Nets, they were maybe 2, maybe 3 inches away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Right?
They literally were. They were a melee here, a substitution there, a timeout at maybe a time,
or
they're in the Eastern Conference,
or an injury away. And I say that because James Harden, that injury hurt them. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Oh, well, KD's foot was on the line. Cool. The Nets didn't bring in Harden and Kyrie so KD could shoot that last jumper and have to shoot that. Like, they brought them guys in because now you have to defend it differently. No matter what you say, a healthy James Harden changes the game. It changes how, the defense is played. Should he have been playing? I don't think he should have been playing because I thought he was still hurt. But, they didn't have what they have now. And, they bring in a guy like Pat Mills, right? Aldridge retires because of blood clots, but then, he gets the okay to come back. So now you got Aldridge. You bring in Paul Millsap. Blake Griffin all of a sudden found his vertical jump. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a player like,
bagging at his best.
I mean, so and then you have one of the best young big men. You trade one of the best young big men and bring up one of the best young big men. So it's like, this is a team that, we know what we're going to get from KD. We know what we're going to get from Harden. They still got one of the best 3-point shooters in Harris. But Harris better not get too comfortable in that role, though.
So, correct. So I'm going to say this, right? This is through the 4 preseason games. I know it's preseason, so they're not playing people at the minutes that they're going to get. But this is without Kyrie. All right, you ready for this? 9th in NBA in scoring. Steve Nash is the coach. They're going to play pace. They got 2 of the best scorers that the NBA has seen in the last 10 years on their team. 3 when the other one's there, right? 27th in rebounding, 23rd in assists through 4 games. That assist total right there. When you're missing your point guard, your once in a generation point guard who can create, opens the floor for so many other people. 23rd in assists on a team that wants to push the ball and get a lot of shots up. The 23rd in assists and the 9th in scoring, they don't equal, right? Like, that doesn't make sense how that can happen. If that trend stays, which it looks like it might be staying, because KD and James Harden have to do a lot more creating for themselves.
So this is what I'm gonna say. I'm not going based off of that for the simple fact that I know majority of preseason, Patty Mills didn't play and James Harden didn't play.
Yeah.
James Harden got 13 or 15 or 16 assists last night when I just watched him play.
I mean, he's going to get his assists, right? Like, he's going to be dishing. He's going to be in the point guard role.
That's in limited minutes. So my thing is this. I'm not worried about their passing because KD's a willing passer. Harden's a willing passer. Harden, he's been top 5 in assists and top 5 in scoring for like the last 6-7 years, right?
Yeah.
So we know he can pass. Like, now, my thing is, it's just, are those other guys ready? Can those other guys step up? If Claxton improves in the rate that you think that he improves, like, that's scary hours out in Brooklyn because they're really, like, you can't guard the pick and roll, and then you can't guard the pick and pop. When they bring in Aldridge, that gives them a little vet that could slow the game down. It was tough for teams to guard last year, and even in the playoffs, to guard Blake at the 5. At some points, like I mean, let's be honest. Blake's former All-Star, multiple All-Star, Harden All-Star, KD All-Star, LaMarcus Aldridge All-Star, Paul Millsap All-Star, Patty Mills borderline All-Star, but he's a champion. You know what I'm saying? He's a multiple champ. Like, he's been to the finals. So, you add those guys, and then you look at Nash, and I think Nash is doing a good job handling that, because not too many people can. But once again, he's a Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's a Hall of Famer that played against these guys. So there's a different level of respect that he's getting.
Well, not even that. Like, I think people forget some of the personalities he's played with in his times in his times in Dallas, his thing with the Phoenix, he was playing with some characters. Thank God that there wasn't really social media the way it was today, because I think, that would have been something else. And then even his weird time in LA, I mean, you're dealing with, the downgrade of Dwight Howard at that time. And it's just, and then you have Kobe.
Downgrade. He had hurt. He was hurt. Dwight had the herniated disc, and correct, as did Nash. Nash was a freak injury away from, really being.
I say all that to say, Nash has been around so many different personalities. He knows how to handle it. I mean, we'll get to it. Depending on how, even with the roster they have, Brooklyn is still a very scary team to go against with KD and with James Harden. Even with just one of those players on the court, I mean, those two guys, they suck. They're like black hole. I don't want to say they're black holes in the term of like they're offensively. They're just black holes because they just suck all the gravity. Everything is focusing on them. It makes the game so much easier for the other players. Now, both of them on the court, oh man. I like Brooklyn. I think this is just an interesting story.
Their biggest loss to me, they traded him to Phoenix. Shamet. I really like Shamet with them. Unfortunately, like I said, they traded him to Phoenix, but they bring in Javon Carter. Javon Carter is a defensive guy. He can lock up and he'll go to length. So that's good. That's added, defensive pressure to add on your bench. And then,
which is kind of what they needed alongside Kyrie and James Harden, because they're not known for their defense. So I get why they had to make a switch. But
this is why I said Harris better not get comfortable, is because now you look at, they draft Cam Thomas. I think he can be a steal of the draft. He's offensively, he's there. The vets love him. So if the vets love him and he continues to do all the right things, I mean, this is a guy come playoff time. He might be dropping 20, 30, he could fall anywhere between that 20, 30 points in a game. He could be that spark plug that you need, where you can't really game plan. Like, you game plan, but you can't really game plan for him. The one thing he can do is put the ball in the basket. He has a work ethic, and it says a lot when you got guys, like I said, like you got guys like KD, you got guys like James Harden in his ear. Their balance of vets and youth is good. Come playoff time, it's going to be needed.
I don't know much about Cam Thomas, but now that you said his name, I'm going to go back and watch the game from last night. I'm going to watch him, see what he does. Definitely. I mean, the fact that you're saying that, I know that's a good pickup. So I'm eager to see this team play with or without Kyrie.
Yeah. Last night wasn't his.
To watch with Kyrie, but
last night wasn't his best offensive game, but I've had my eyes on Cam Thomas, even while he was at LSU. It's
okay.
You as a coach, right? When a guy knows they can go get it. And the NBA, confidence is everything, right? Because everybody's skilled. So you have to have a certain level of confidence, and you have to have a certain level of system buy-in in order to get there. This dude is a bucket of hot Cheetos when the ball's in his hands.
Not hot Cheetos.
Yeah, like he's a bucket. So like, that's all I can say about
I'll finish with this for Brooklyn. With or without Kyrie, this is a really good team. Now, I think we said this off mic. They're gonna have to trade for something for the future, right? Whether it be, because like you said with Joe Harris, he shouldn't get comfortable. They might need another guard out there in the near future.
I mean, but they have they have Cam Thomas. They drafted David Duke out of Providence. So they got, and a guy that's not on their roster right now that they drafted in the second round was Marcus Zarakowski out of Creighton.
I know nothing about.
He's another one. He's in their stash. He's in their stable. He's not playing with them right now. He didn't sign with them, but he's in their stable. So they have guards. a plethora of guards. Now to your defense.
Now they will need a forward.
I watched Naz Reid lock LaMarcus Aldridge up last night. And
he hasn't played in a year.
I mean, he hasn't played in like 6 months. I mean, he's played with a year ago.
The season.
Yeah, but
he hasn't played in the season.
He played half a season. He played half a season.
If you have blood clots, you're not doing anything because you don't want those blood clots to move close to your heart. He hasn't played. You have Paul Millsap. Yeah, Paul Millsap can still get out there and get you a bucket.
Mm-hmm.
He's not moving like Paul Millsap used to move. So that Kyrie chip, that Kyrie piece,
but I don't
seems
think
like it's movable.
I don't think Kyrie's make or break for them. Regardless, that's what I'm saying.
No,
I don't think he's make or break.
No.
They can make the play. They can make the championship without him. They can win the championship without him. Kyrie's not make or break, and that's no offense to Kyrie. It's just the way this team is set up.
Well.
The team has bodies. If they stay healthy, especially at the top, if the top stays healthy, come playoff time, that medium and the bottom players is going to be a problem. So let's go. Let's transfer over to this team that coach doesn't hold themselves accountable.
All right, let's talk about it. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go. You can start out because I got a lot to say about Philly.
They have this team being number one in the East. I don't think they're. I think they're barely scratching into the playoffs. Barely.
I disagree.
Like, you could disagree all you want.
The reason why I disagree is because talent-wise, whether Ben Simmons plays, whether he doesn't, whether they trade him, this is the most talented this Phillies team has been in 10 years. You're putting a lot of. I'm looking at the roster. Joel's gonna be Joel. He's gonna be fine, right? Yeah.
Young Tyrese Maxey. I like him.
He needs to be a starter.
Another player I thought the Magic probably should have looked at and drafted, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at Thibault. Thibault's gonna be solid, right?
He's gonna get his
stuff. He's gonna get stuff on the defensive end. Shake Milton. Okay, I'm all right. I'm cool with that. If Ben Simmons isn't playing, Tobias Harris cannot be a third, fourth option guy. He's now a second option, if not the first option.
He's been second. He's been the second. He's been the second option. He's not but that's where people get it wrong is because they think that Tobias Harris isn't the second option. Like, no, Ben Simmons playing the point. His main scoring options is Embiid and Tobias Harris. Like those are his two options.
So let's rewind. I'm not saying scoring, it's more creating. Because what Ben Simmons does do well is create.
Yes.
That's what he does, right? Throughout the whole season until the playoffs, it got a little shaky, right? Because the game slows down, teams pack it in. They're not guarding him. He's not shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Tobias Harris hasn't had to create since he left Orlando.
I mean, but he did.
He was the number one option in Orlando. He was the best player. So he was creating everything.
A lot of that has to do with the system and the coaching. Once again,
and now look at their coaching now.
I mean, it's the same coach from yesterday. This dude,
not evolving.
If Doc doesn't start holding himself accountable, so I'm looking at this, right? Whether Ben plays or not, they're still a playoff team. Ben plays, they're top 3 in the East, right? If Ben doesn't play, they're top 4 or 5 in the East.
You think 4 or 5?
Yes, listen.
They're gonna be better than. They're gonna be better than Atlanta.
They have the potential to still be better than Atlanta. We still have to remember that Joel Embiid is still one of the top 5 bigs in the league, right?
They're gonna be better than Miami.
Healthy, if they're yes, definitely if they're healthy, yes, they're gonna be better than Miami.
I don't see it.
I watch. This is why. Listen, this team. This is the best their bench has ever been. This whole time, this is the best their bench has been. You got 2 guys that in the Eastern Conference, in the Eastern Conference playoffs, showed that they could score 35 plus points. Did it, and then the coach benches them.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. I'm putting it on Doc. I understand that, but you're putting so much more pressure on Tobias Harris and now Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid,
that's if Ben doesn't play. If Ben doesn't, all right.
He's not going to
play. All right. So peep game. Tyrese Maxey in the games that he started, the teams went in 8 games. They went 5-3, right?
I like Tyrese.
But hold on. So, but hold on, because I in those 5-3 games, Joel and Ben Simmons didn't play. In those 8 games, he averaged 18 points, 5, I think it was like 4 or 5 rebounds and like 3 or 4 assists, right? As a rookie, he showed as a rookie that he can get 18 points a game starting.
So let me just pause you there before you get going too much more. Joel Embiid's injured. Who's his backup?
Andre Drummond.
Let's say Joel Embiid gets injured. Joel Embiid gets injured where he's out for 2 weeks. That's possible 6 games, right? And we said you're 1 6-game losing streak away from going to the top to the bottom. You trust Andre Drummond?
In Philly? Yeah.
No. You trust Andre Drummond to now be your starting center?
Yes.
For a 6 game. I don't.
He's a starting center in the league. Like, my thing is this. He's a starting center in the league. I don't care what he did with LA last year because he was only with LA like 2 weeks before things really started to get busy. Cleveland stopped, Cleveland said, listen, until we can get rid of you, don't show up. But before that, go look at his stats last year before, like, the start of the season. Cleveland was actually competitive. He was putting up numbers and Cleveland was competitive right before they made that trade for Jared Allen. So, like, no, I believe he can put up the work. Not only can he put up the stats, he can do it competing wise. Plus, like I said, he's been with Philly since training camp. So, of course, I can trust him. He's a starting center in this league. It's not because he got hurt. Cleveland didn't know what they were doing. They was trying to get rid of him. He was trying to stay in Cleveland and build something with them. So put him in Philly, and Joel's out for 2 weeks. He's going to put up 20 and 10 easy every game. And they're still going to compete. I wish I could pull up his stats before he got to LA last year. Because, like I said, he wasn't in shape when he played with the Lakers. So it doesn't matter. Like, everything that how he played with the Lakers last year, I discount. I don't count pretty much anything he did with the Lakers because he was out of shape.
I hear you, but I'm not too high on him, as you can tell.
I watched him play. I looked at the Philly team and I'm like, you know what? I see why they're begging Ben to play. I see why they don't want to let Ben go. Because if Ben Simmons is on that team, the way that team's made up right now, if Ben Simmons is on that team could go to the finals and possibly win the championship. Even with Doc coaching trash.
Dude, you're in a conference right now where we said there's possibly 3, like last year, 4 teams from this division made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right?
These are the 2 guaranteed teams to me.
I don't think this is a guaranteed team. I will tell you who, I mean, we'll go over it. This isn't my guaranteed team.
Is Boston better than Philly?
Honestly, how I have it, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I have Brooklyn, Boston, New York, 76ers, Toronto.
I got Philly. I got Philly in the Nets. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. But you people forget Seth. We haven't even talked about Seth. And Maxey can be that playmaker for them. They have enough vets. They still got Danny Green. Like, they got enough vets and they have enough youth guys like Korkmaz. Like, I expect for him to have another good year, have him elevate his game this year too. They just signed George Niang from the Jazz. So this is a guy, like, when I'm telling you their bench, this is the best their bench is playing because they got firepower on their bench. Niang played great for the Jazz for the last 2-3 years, playing his role. He's from Mass. He's close.
Hold on. The Jazz have what over there?
A culture?
A really good coach who has a system. Okay. Like, and that's the part that we're forgetting here, right?
But
we're forgetting that Doc is still driving the ship.
Yes.
Not making adjustments and making the wrong adjustments.
But here's the thing.
And then also talking about all the players, man. He's the biggest distraction on the team.
Here's the thing, though, about this, and we have to understand when we're talking about Doc Rivers, Doc Rivers coaches everybody but superstars good. Right? He did it in Orlando. Right?
That's
He had
fair.
he listen, we're not talking Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace if Doc Rivers doesn't coach him the way that he does in Orlando.
No, that's fair. That's totally fair.
So that's my fair. Thing is this: if Doc could manage the other guys, I don't care about Ben Simmons, I don't care about Joel Embiid. Those other guys alone is going to help carry them into the playoffs. They're a playoff team.
That's fair.
That's why I said whether Doc coaches great or not, this is a playoff team. If Doc decides to be a coach that holds himself accountable along the way and actually empowers some of his players, like, fam, if a guy scores 35 points in game 4 or game 5, then you play him in game 6. And you just don't play him for 10, 15 minutes. You play him for 20, 30 minutes. You play him a lot. You already know. Like, don't make the adjustment for the other team. Make the other team make the adjustment for you, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah. We're in agreement with that. I guess my thing is this. If whatever offense now Doc has to put in because your best playmaker, play creator, whatever, is probably not going to play for you at all.
Don't matter.
And you're not, which is okay. Now this is a team built around Joel. Perfect. I think we all are ready to see this. If Joel gets injured and now the offense is now built around Andre Drummond, I don't feel confident in this. And it's not so much for me, the roster.
But understand this. If Joel Embiid gets hurt, who's the number one option?
It's gonna be Tobias.
And you just said, what did Tobias Harris do as but understand they also have the right vets around them. Like you have Curry, you have Danny Green. Like Danny Green has won championships, right? He got what, 4 championships? 3?
He's won three with 3 different teams.
Right. And between there, he had a back-to-back with 2 different teams. So, understanding that.
Listen, it's good. It's really good. But
I'm looking at it and it's like, they have bodies. Whether Ben plays or not. And it all depends on if Ben doesn't play and they trade him, what are they getting in return? Because right now management is sick. Like they're on sicko mode, thinking that they don't value him. But then when it comes to trading him, they want to say, oh, his value is really this high. Like, no, you got to pick. Because right now you got to pick one or the other. You're being too choosy.
Like I said, we both said this division has possibly 3 teams.
Mm-hmm.
This is my possible 3rd team in the playoffs.
This is my guaranteed 2nd.
This is my possible, which, I mean, we're not too far off here, Ralph. We're not too far off here. I just think that there is a lot of pieces. This team is perfectly built around Joel. And it'll be interesting to see wherever Ben Simmons lands.
Depends on the drama.
It's going to be interesting to watch.
The coach's job is to manage that. So let's transition to who do you think is going to be the coach of the year in this division?
I'm going to say Steve Nash. Hands down, Steve Nash.
Mm-hmm.
Just because with the drama that they're dealing with, he does have superstars. This is the guaranteed number 1 team in this division,
mm-hmm.
my opinion. I'm probably sure your opinion as well.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Nash should win this if it was just this division.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can rock with that. Mine's is on contingencies, right?
Okay.
If Boston or the Knicks can find themselves as a top 5 team.
Okay.
I'll go. It could be either one of them. Other than that, I'm going with Nash as well. Because
this conference is loaded, man. This Eastern Conference is loaded. So I get it.
It's a long time since we said that, It's been a long time since we said that. Who do you have as the MVP of the division?
Kevin Durant now. Kevin Durant. I mean, he looks like he never had an injury. He is just so smart. His creating, his defense, like all of it. Like it's KD.
I'm gonna go with James Harden.
And I'm all right with that for the same exact reasons. His playmaking, his shooting, his decision making.
in
And now
order
he actually is starting to play a little defense. Like,
and in order for the Nets to be who, you know, to be that
those two need to be in the conversation.
one of those guys is gonna have to, you know, be that MVP. It doesn't. They're not. I don't think it's gonna be in a sense of them taking away from one another. You know, if injuries, whoever does get hurt, if they get hurt, then the other guy's probably going to be in the running for the MVP. Yep. But I also feel like Nash is going to, looking at their roster, I don't see KD playing 30 plus minutes, like over 30 minutes.
Which I'm okay. They probably shouldn't do that. James Harden has been so reliable.
At least not until,
especially where he was the only person.
Yeah, at least until, you know, March. Once March hits, I'm gonna give you minutes, but I gotta preserve these guys, which is why, you know, I feel like the addition of Cam, I think Cam, if he comes out guns a-blazing, he's gonna save James Harden and save Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And then especially, you know, but let's go with most improved. What do you got for most improved before we wrap it up?
I got OG, dog. OG. I think that with Siakam kind of stalling out up there, they're going to be Nick Nurse is going to be relying on Siakam a little bit more. I mean, we talked about it earlier, and you said it during the Toronto. It could be Gary Trent. Like, I'm not mad at that either. I'm going to say OG just because he is going to be taking more shots. And he's going to show his offensive back more. I think he's going to be able to show his offensive back. Yeah.
I think this is the toughest category because there's a player on every team that I feel could stand out, you know.
And not just could stand out, they have to stand out for their team to be successful.
Like we talked about Nick Claxton with the Nets, Tyrese Maxey, you know, but Tyrese Maxey is contention on Doc Rivers being Doc Rivers or Doc Rivers, you know, letting him go. You know, Doc Rivers, you know, in the interview saying that Shake is the starting point guard. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I watched Tyrese Maxey play. I'm like, yo, there is no way that you're playing Shake over Ty. Like,
Maxey got it, dude. Like,
maybe you do that so that way you try to, you know, muffle his star in the league. But like, yo, he should be a starting point guard. Not just like, if you're not gonna start him, all right, cool. Well, you talk to Rich Paul and figure out how you can deal him somewhere he can play. I like Mitchell Robinson. I believe him healthy. Like I said, there's so many guys, and like I said, this one is probably the toughest because between Mitchell Robinson, Rob Smith, Nick Claxton, Trent, you know, but I don't think Trent will get it, only for the simple fact that, you know, he was blown up as soon as he got there, you know. So it's a three-way tie. Like, I don't see Maxey getting it because I feel like Doc Rivers is going to be Doc Rivers. So between Robert Williams, Mitchell Robinson, and Nick Claxton, I'm going to stick with the bigs, like, because how those guys play, that's how their teams are going to go. You know, a healthy Mitchell Robinson could turn that Knicks into could help the Knicks become a three, that third team.
I'm not mad at that at all, because in order for New York to either have the same exact season they had last year, even step it up a little bit, they're going to need Mitchell Robinson. You can tell, you know, the times where they had their lags, they were missing that big dude. You know, so I'm not mad at that at all.
I'm going to tell you this. If he's on the Knicks last year during the playoffs and Trey tries that floater, floater is not going. It's not going, getting over him. This man got a 40-inch vert. Like, it ain't going, and he's long. Like, and Trey's my guy, but I got to be honest. Like, yeah, you can get that floater over New Orleans, but Robinson might be different. Who you got as rookie of the year in this division before you wrap it up?
I have no one.
Dang,
you know,
crazy.
Only reason why I have no one is because these teams they're veteran heavy on a lot of these teams. They're veteran heavy. A lot of their rookies, they're going to get some playing time, but I don't think not enough playing time besides maybe Scotty Barnes to make a really big impact on their teams.
I mean, but that's the part. So you're gonna go with Barnes for this division, rookie of the year.
I guess so, but I'm not like.
All right. I'm going with Killer Cam Thomas.
You know more than me about this. Like I told you, I don't know too much about him. So
I just been big on him.
Have to watch him.
You know how, like, and you know I say this is like sometimes I blame teams for players being like being draft bust, right? Because you draft a guy and you don't know what you're going to do with him. You don't have any plans with him. How does he fit your team? What are you trying to do? You don't really have that. Cam Thomas he's in the perfect position. He's in the perfect spot. Like, it's like any player that got drafted by Golden State these last 2 years, you landed where you needed to be. All you have to do is be your best self, run with confidence, and continue to improve. So with that said, let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tapping in. I'm your host, Ralph, right? Here with my co-host, Elise Clyburn.
Hey.
Share your thoughts. The link's below if you want to hit one of us up on Twitter. Like, share, comment, subscribe, like, share, then comment. Do it in that order. Let us know your thoughts, especially for this upcoming season. This was our preview for the Atlantic Division. Check out our previews for the rest of the divisions as we continue to lock in. I'm super excited for the season. So with that said,
excited, man. Let's get it.
Y'all be great. Continue to walk in your greatness. Until next time.
Peace.